Hi. Thank you, everybody. It's been quite an emotional morning for the family. For those of you who are in the courtroom or have read about it, they've, I think, at great personal expense, have bared their souls about the trauma they've endured. Interestingly, the generational trauma that the family, extended families, both the Andersons and the Menendez families have endured. I think it's astonishing to me that, and I think we talked about it on the record, that it's a unicorn-style situation where you have horrific crimes that nobody is walking away from, but also remarkable, almost unparalleled rehabilitation and redemption. The focus of an 1172, which is the resentencing hearing, because the public seems to get a lot of disinformation, frankly, coming out of the DA's office, but the focus of 1172 is on redemption. The focus of 1172 is the legislature has spoken that they want to encourage rehabilitation. That is the law. The law is you do not relitigate the facts of the crime as the DA wants to do, and at least if they were going to do that, they should probably try and get the facts correct, but that's because they've been watching disinformation themselves. The fact is that the family, all of the living members of the family, are unified in their belief that they should be released and released immediately. Obviously, for Terry, who is Jose's sister and Kitty's best friend, and for Joan, who is not only Kitty's older sister, but has proclaimed that she was almost a surrogate mother, and all of the extended family, they want them out, and they want them out now. And that's hopefully what the result that we're aiming for. I'll take a couple of questions.
Mayor, Mark's family was really thrilled, when they were on the stand that the first redaction of the trial, they really hit hard with all families on the stand. Do you think their past surgery is going to come back to all this?
It's interesting. It's a deflection, obviously, by the DA's office. I don't, as much as I object to the deputies in there, I think this new DA, as I said last week, I think he's got an unhealthy and unnatural belief that he needs to rehabilitate Jose. I don't know whose interest he's vindicating other than him and his dad's representation of Jose's business partner. It's interesting he wants to focus on tax fraud. Somebody just reminded me, this is a guy whose father, who was very well respected in this town, and him for a number of years, they made all of their money defending people accused of tax fraud, so the irony is delicious. But the fact remains that the so-called scripting and the other stuff, that was done 35 years ago. Once again, it's deflection. The code section, as the judge indicated this morning, and he read from the code, it's very clear as to what this is supposed to be about. This hearing, resentencing, is not to relitigate the facts. By the way, we're happy to do that in the habeas. We have a separate proceeding pending. We have a separate judge to litigate that. That's where all of these arguments that they want to deflect here are from. And you may ask, well, then why are they bringing it up? You didn't ask that, but I'll ask your follow-up. They're bringing it up because if they read the code section, if they are intellectually honest, they would understand that there are no two better candidates in the state of California right now for resentencing than Erik and Lyle Menendez, for all of the reasons that we talked about. If they were intellectually honest, they would admit, you know what, we've used these guys as proxies for politics. That shouldn't be. Just let's try to course correct and get back to why we're here. We're here for a resentencing. I'm talking slower for Kovacic, so I'll let you ask one question, but ask it slow, Robert.
will the brothers be able to address the court without being heard?
If the judge, as I understand what happened this morning, is in all sentencings in the state of California and mostly federal as well, most jurisdictions, at a sentencing, you can do what's called an allocution, and which means you can address the court. If he recalls the sentence and then says, I'm now conducting the resentencing, they will be allowed to speak.
Mark, are you pushing for the brothers?
What the judge talked about earlier, you were about to do that, but then you went off on a tangent. Can you explain the narrow issue that's being decided?
The issue today on the recall of the sentence is very simple, was stated on the record. Is there a likelihood that they will commit a super strike, what I call the 7 deadly sins? There is zero likelihood. That's what the record reflects. Nobody has suggested that anywhere, anytime. That is the calculation. If that is the calculation, the sentence should be recalled. And then this afternoon, when I come back out, we will discuss what the ramifications of that are. I'm going to take one more question. Then the promise was, I'm not going to be harassed as I go to lunch.
Mark, are you pushing for the brothers to be released? Are you pushing for the brothers to be released without a parole hearing? And if so, is there a path?
Yes, to answer the question was, are we pushing for them to be released without a parole hearing? Yes. What we are pushing for under the statute is a recall of the sentence, a resentence that is meaningful modification. That's the statute. The meaningful modification would be that they get convicted of a lesser included offense, which would be voluntary manslaughter, which, by the way, half of the first jury voted for, and time served. Thank you. I'll see you this afternoon.
All right, a lot going on. They are at lunch, so that resentencing hearing is still happening. They're on a lunch break, which is why Mark Geragos was able to come out and speak to the press. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Sam Bassett and former law enforcement officer Claudia King. Let me ask you, Sam, as you're listening to him, and I really like that he focused on the resentencing hearing purpose, to look at the redemption and to focus on the rehabilitation. Number one, do you agree with that interpretation? And number two, it makes it sound so easy. By all accounts, these two have been model prisoners, but I don't think it's so easy or straightforward for a judge.
I think he's smart to focus on the statute and the language in the statute that emphasizes rehabilitation and the risk assessment. I do think that there is some evidence of some misbehavior on the boys' parts, the young men's part, while they've been in prison, sneaking in a cell phone, maybe some other minor misbehavior. But he's smart to narrow that focus. Obviously, the DA is going to revisit the horrific facts of the case, regardless of what Mark Geragos wants him to do, to remind the court of what they did.
And as I understand it, I think that they would have to go before a parole board for a hearing. I know Geragos is saying they're going to ask that not have to happen, they be released. I'm just looking at the law. I'm not quite certain exactly where the court may be able to come down on that. We'll have to wait and see. Claudia, a horrific crime. I remember this crime because I'm about the same age as those boys, and it was a huge deal in the news. The horrificness, and all I could think was, how can you kill your own mother and father, and the details of it. I do think that they have to consider, the judge, those facts. But how do you feel as former law enforcement? You've invested cases, you've been involved with homicides. When you hear that it was that horrific, but that all living family members of these two boys are united, they want these boys to get out of prison.
I think that does make a big difference here, because in any point in a case, especially at the beginning when you're looking at whether we're going to do a plea deal, you want the victims to be involved, and you listen to them, and you weigh what they want and what they say they want to happen. So I do think it's a big plus in their corner that the entire family is behind them and wants them out immediately.
And to me, it says it's a forgiving family, because even though they are family too, these two boys, I don't think that we always see that everyone says, okay, they've done enough, they've been rehabilitated, let them out, after such a brutal murder of both of their parents.